Hey, welcome. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. This isn't just a normal video where I kind of teach you how to do something. In this video, it's a little bit more of an editorial where I am actually responding to an article that somebody else published. So Kevin Geary published a great article and a great video just showcasing some pain points with the block editor. What I noticed was that a lot of people online basically disagreed with Kevin, but nobody really wanted to do the one thing he asked, which was show him how to build something in the block editor that he had built in a different page builder. So before you watch the rest of this video, if you haven't read his article or checked out his video, I recommend doing that. And then I also recommend checking out an article that I wrote that this video is accompanying, because in the article I lay out basically my kind of argument about really just assumptions. Everybody makes a lot of assumptions about the block editor, and I'm not talking about Kevin, I'm talking about the community, the people who say that it's a page builder killer or that it's, going to kill Elementor and stuff. I just don't agree with that. I don't think that's a useful way to sort of characterize the block editor. I think there's a lot of power and benefits to it, but I think they're just separate tools that accomplish things separately. So what I tried to lay out in this video is how I would accomplish what he showed in the block editor, not how I think you can do everything that you can do in a page builder in the block editor. So if you haven't checked out his article, his video, check out my article explaining sort of the foundations, and then you can come back and watch the rest of this video where I just do it more of a nuts and bolts showcase of how I built this layout in the block editor. Thanks. So here's my attempt to build this layout with the WordPress block editor default 2024 theme. I will note that there are two sort of design flourishes really around the hovering over the card with the animation that you cannot do in just the block editor. Everything else you can do. That one you can't do. You do have to write kind of like custom CSS. And you have to put that custom CSS somewhere. In Kevin's video, he uses the built-in CSS editor that's kind of in the site editor, not in the page editor. I don't recommend doing that. I don't think it's really a good approach, and obviously didn't work out well in his video. It was really clinky experience. If you want CSS options on every single block, there are lots of plugins that do that. ThemeIsle has one that seems to be pretty good. It gives you a CSS editor on every block. It scopes it automatically to the block. So that's a feature that exists in a free plugin. You can definitely do that. I think if you're building a custom design for a client and they're paying you money, I don't think it's too unreasonable to think that you could put that into a theme and make a custom theme. With like a block theme, it's very easy to set up a block theme. There's the create block theme package that sets everything up for you. And then you just have your own little place to put in like extra block styles and stuff like that. And the thing is that those styles end up being, built into the editor. They end up being enqueued properly. They end up being like part of the experience, part of the style engine that keeps performance really lean, all that sort of stuff. So I don't think it's unreasonable to say like, for this fancy custom design, I need to write a custom theme, even though in the world of block editing, that theme could be 2 files, 3 files. Like, it's very simple. It's not the themes of old with, tons and tons of files and templates and stuff. So in this approach, you will see me write a little bit of code at the end and do it in a theme, because I just think that's a better approach for where to write it. But you could theoretically do like you did and write it in the CSS editor, or you could use a plugin that lets you put CSS on any block. That's an option. Other than that, like 90% of this layout is very doable in the block editor, and we're going to do it right now. Okay, so one of the first complaints was that you can't change semantic elements. So you actually can. It's right here under HTML element. So this is the group block. Generally, when you are building a pattern and you're putting it in a pattern library for a theme, you kind of put everything in a group block anyway, because it's a really nice way to like make individual patterns. You can save them to the pattern library. Agencies like to kind of work in that sort of atomic, block pattern approach. So if we want to put this in a section, definitely doable, a thing we can do. There was a complaint that you can't use like list items, like lists and list items. And again, that is a valid complaint. You have a limited selection of elements here. You can't just do anything, and I will have an accompanying blog post to this. And it's really about, you're not going to find every setting under the sun. You're going to find like reasonable settings. And then beyond that, if you really want that page builder experience, first of all, use a page builder. The second of all, you'll find those options there, or use a plugin. Lots of plugins that can accomplish that sort of stuff. The second piece was a disagreement about how the content widths work. I've had the same issue in the past of kind of not wrapping my head around why there's these 3 different content widths and what they mean. So let me just kind of break that down real quick. In really any website, there's really 3 different widths that you want things at. Number one is the normal, they call it none, but it's basically like the normal content width. And that's, where a paragraph should be before it gets so wide that it's not accessible and it's hard to read. So you'll see that kind of narrow blog kind of content as the first piece of width. Then there's this wide width, which is like basically a website, like your header and your footer are typically might not be full width. They might just be wide width. And that's kind of like a nice like 1200 pixel wide website or something like that. And then there's the full width option. And we're going to use that for this element because we just want to give it a background color. Cool. So we have a section block. It's going to be full width. And then inside of it, we're going to add a columns block, and that's going to be wide width. And if I take off the sidebars there, you can kind of see like that's going to stop. The full width is going to keep going. If you come from like Bootstrap, Tailwind, that sort of mindset where there's like 15 different container sizes, and each breakpoint you get a new container and a new container and a new container, and you have like all these like containers widening out. That's just not how it works. So if you have that assumption, you just kind of have to learn what the assumption here, which is, everything is basically needs to either be as wide as like a paragraph, as wide as like a nice website, or full width. And then at any point in time, anywhere in the block editor, you can just override those values. So you can override it globally in the site editor, or on a particular layout, you can say like, oh, for this one, I want my content a little narrower, or wider, So the options are all there. It's just kind of like the mindset of using it. Okay, so we have our columns. It's 3. It's actually going to be 4 columns. Let's go here. I might actually zoom out just a tiny bit. Okay. And we'll pull open the list view. Another complaint in there was that the list view does not stay open. I second that one. I think that it would be amazing if the list view stayed open or floated over. I would love to see, there's already kind of like a zoom out view that's coming in, but I would love to see more of like a Figma approach where I could like have panels over my content and kind of scroll around. I could see that happening. Okay, so let's start here with the accent. Oh, let's change our text color. Let's go back to our group. Okay. Accent heading, we'll just leave that as a paragraph and we'll center it. Then we have our section heading and we'll make that white and center that. And then it was just like a couple sentences of lorem ipsum and we'll just center that. Then I'm going to come back to my group block and I'm going to add my, spacing. I'm just going to add some top and bottom padding. The nice thing about these sorts of things is you can get granular and write it in, but like you can also use the scale, which is, as you know, something you would really want to have. You'd want to have that scale. And then we're going to have our columns. We're going to use a cover block for this. I find this to be best when you want background images. You can actually, even just regular old group blocks can actually do background images now, but we'll do it with the cover block. And we'll come back out. I'm just going to do a couple of base elements, then we'll get down into like more of the details and we'll kind of copy these out. I just want to get rid of, there's like a minimum height. This is one of those where sometimes the default values don't really show you what's there. I just want to get rid of that. And then at the end of the thing, I need a button, right? There was like a call to action. Okay, let's center that and let's give it a background. Cool. Okay, that's kind of the start of it. There's a few other things that I like to do. So I like to take things like this and group them together because, and then I will make them stretch because now it's like a kind of a flex box. But what I like about that is then I can use block spacing. And so I can just basically edit the space between blocks, but not the other blocks. I kind of like that ability, right? So like I want these to be like a lot more snug. And then I want to go to the group and I want the block spacing there to be a little bit bigger. Like I want a little more room there, right? So that's kind of a nice thing. You kind of get used to like throwing things into stacks and columns and then using that block gap to get the space in between. And it's a lot more elegant than like adding margins and stuff after everything. Cool. Okay. So inside of the cover block, I'm going to make another stack and I'm going to stretch the items out. And what do we need? We needed that little paragraph that's like label. Then we needed, let's go back to a screenshot. This is just a placeholder heading. I'm guessing that this is going to be like an H3 maybe. And then after, short description goes here. Okay. Okay, so how will I accomplish this design here? So I'm going to use, again, like more stack blocks. I'm going to take these two and I'm going to stack them together so that those are one element and the paragraph is another element. And then I'm going to go to that parent that has both of them and I'm going to justify it with space between. And what that's going to do is the bigger I make it, the more it's going to spread it out so that the paragraph sticks to the top and the stack sticks to the bottom. So then I can use, so I could use block spacing and spread it out that way. But what I'm actually going to do is like a minimum height. Let's do like whatever size we want this to be. I don't know. That'll be based on the design spec, but that feels a little too tall. Okay. And then I can go to this little stack and I can kind of decrease the spacing between those and get them really close because I feel like they look pretty close. And there's a label. And then the label's inside of a little box or something. So let's take our label. Let's put that inside of a group so that we can, you can actually do this to the label itself, but I'm going to do it to a group around the label, which is just give it a background color, give it a text color, maybe do some like kind of nice default padding. And then I'm actually going to I'm going to justify thin left so that it sits like that. And kind of mess with the padding a little bit more. Let's see, I need some side padding on it. And I feel like this is like a little bit, I'm going to customize that one to kind of match the style a little bit more. Okay. Let's save this. Let's just jump to the front end so we can get like kind of an outside view. Okay. So these maybe are a little too close together. We can increase that spacing. Same here. You know, again, if you're making your custom theme, you're kind of defining all those defaults. So it's already on a scale. And you could do that in theme.json. You could do that in the editor. And then let's just add our border radius. So this little group here with the label needs some rounded borders. So we'll just, I don't know what it is in the design, but we'll just say 5 pixels. And the cover block also needs, let's see, cover block, styles, 5 pixel border radius. It's kind of get rid of some of this UI and look at it. Okay, so you can kind of tell it's kind of got the curved corner here. Yeah, there we go. Let's see, am I missing anything else? Let's go back to the cover block. Yeah, I think I agree this block spacing is a little too tight. Let's go up one there and come back to this stack and let's update the block spacing there. Okay. Yeah, that looks a little better. And again, like I could customize this if we need to get a little more granular. Okay, so I mean, that's kind of everything. Text heading, overlay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and this needs to be a link, right? I'll just link it like that. So that gets the basic. I mean, I think that's basically it. Obviously the fonts aren't the same, but I don't think that's a big deal. And we have an image background. And I think all we need now is there's a kind of an effect where when you hover over it, it sort of zooms in and fades in the image. And the second piece is that the link should not just be the text here, it should be the whole card. And Kevin has a really good video basically explaining why you don't want to wrap the whole card in a link and put a bunch of divs inside of the link. You use this kind of pseudo after effect. It's really handy. And I agree, that's just definitely a better approach. Okay, so overall, I think the layout's pretty simple to get. What we need now is that sort of custom effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this with a Command C, and I'm just going to paste 4 of them. This kind of weird thing where you have to put in a paragraph. It's not my favorite. Let's update. Let's do a quick fresh. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some stuff around fonts and spacing and stuff. There's kind of like a nice big gap in between. Again, so I did it with columns. I want to say in Kevin's, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I think he did it in a flexbox. That's kind of nice because the way it wraps is a little easier. There's definitely some complaints around the block editor and columns and responsive design, and I'll just second that opinion that I think it's coming, but I think it's taking a little longer than I would like it to take. But I can use the nice block spacing inside and just get a little more of a gap there. Yeah, so if you use so instead of a column, you could use just a row, similar to the stack where you have those flexbox controls, except it's just sideways. And that's nice because then it'll wrap one at a time and that kind of thing. The columns are a little limited where like it'll be 4 and then it'll just go down to 1. So if I were making a theme for a client, like I would, you know, put a little more control over that. So how do I add custom styles? The best way to do it, the easiest way to do it, no build process, no custom blocks, no React, nothing like that, is to add a block style. A block style is essentially a big button that predefines a bunch of CSS. So the best example is on the button block. If I click outline and reset, let me just reset the colors. Basically, it's that kind of like, first it was filled in, now it's an outline. It's just additional CSS, right? So that's one option. And I think that's the option we're gonna go. And whoops, there we go. And did I do the, oh, I did it backwards. White background, black text. Okay, let's do some custom code. So like I said, I think that it's not really that unreasonable to say like I'm making a custom theme or I have a custom plugin where I've put in like extra styles, extra things like that. You know, the block editor's gotten pretty good at like letting you define styles and then like attach them to specific blocks or something so that if a block is not on a web page, then it's not going to render the CSS. It's this whole style engine idea, which basically says like, I know everything that's on the page and I'm only going to load the styles I need, is super handy. So what we're going to use is a function. I'm going to put it in just like a little plugin PHP file, but the idea here, and let's turn off Copilot. The idea here is that I just need to register a style in CSS. And I want to attach it to the block. So I'm going to use a function called register block style. And we're going to make our own little button with our own little CSS attached to it. All I need to say is what block I want to attach it to. I'm going to attach it to the cover block. So let's go back here. The cover block is this sort of group with the background image. You know, it has some other things that other blocks don't have. Like it has like a focal point picker for like your background image. It has, you know, an overlay like color that you can choose or get rid of, duotone filters, things like that. You know, like I said, we could have done this with a group block. I don't know that it really makes too much of a difference. But we're going to register a style that's going to show up right here in the editor. And that's what's nice about this is like, no one's writing in a custom class. I'm not telling clients like where a class is that they need to apply. I'm not, you know, keeping track of all that sort of stuff. It's just a nice UI that's just built in. And this is just one way. There's other ways that are more powerful. This is just like the simplest approach. So all I need is a name for my style. I'm going to call it example pattern. I need a label, which is what you're going to see, whoops, in the back end. And I'll just call it example pattern. And then my inline style. So you can do it a few different ways. You can basically tell WordPress the name, like you could pass it the name of a style that you've created and registered with like WP-enqueue style. And it'll be like, if you want like a style sheet, like a CSS file or some Sass or something and a build process, whatever, you can say that it's basically, it just wants to know where's the CSS that it's going to pull in. But I'm going to use inline style, which means it's just going to let me write CSS right here. Normally I would have like separate CSS files and stuff and it would be a little more clean, but I'm just trying to do like a quick example here. So let's start here. Let's refresh. Let's save. Let's refresh. Let's go to our cover. Okay, so now it's showing up. So the way register block style works is all you're doing is turning a class on and off the element. So let's, what am I on, the third column? So all I'm doing is basically like in this element, in my cover block. Oh yeah. All I'm doing is I'm adding a class called isStyle and then the name of my style. So that's all this is doing, is just adding a class for you. It's just instead of like doing it manually, which you could do, you could come down here, there's like an advanced tab, you know, but really this is all it's doing, is it's just doing it for you with a nice UI that's like kind of nice and handy. Okay, so that means whatever name I give it, I just need to use that in my class. So I'm going to say is style example pattern. So I need to do a few things. I need to make the container, the cover block, position relative. So normally I like doing this in a separate file because then I have like code linting, like I can see if I'm making mistakes and stuff like that, but we'll see. Okay, And I'm going to do like a default is style. I should just, let's be smart. So what happens when you don't use Copilot in a video? So for the image that's inside of the cover block, let's add a little transition. This is like one of those things where like people in page builders, like you're writing all this code anyway. So like, what's the difference writing it in a page builder, writing it all in a nice version controlled theme or plugin? I don't know. I'm kind of joking because I know people have different reasons for different things. Okay. So then we just need our focus within. If there's focus within, or if there's a hover, I guess, right? Then we want to transform the scale of the image. I'm transforming it up. You could probably start it lower and transform it to 0. Like I said, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I think that's essentially what the effect is going for. You know, at this point, I'm really more about showing you how I would do this sort of stuff versus like matching the exact CSS of it. Okay, so let's save that. Let's refresh this. So now background, missing, hover, there we go. Look at that. Okay, we're getting the effect. And I only applied it to one. That's what's nice is it's not global. It's not defined everything. And all I got to do with my other ones is just come to each cover block, add the pattern. Let's update. Let's refresh the front end. Okay, look at that. Cool. And then the last part is that link. And again, it's a cover, like I can just say, look for the link inside and then apply all of my code, the content, the absolute position, the cursor, all this sort of stuff. Let's save that. Let's reload. And then now it's an actual link. You can see the cursor change. You can see the link show up in the bottom corner. And there's that effect. So we have 32 lines of code. I mean, minus those first 5. So less than 30 lines of code to register a block style. And now it exists. It's in the back and I can turn it on and off and I can use it on any other section and then it's there. And then the CSS is just kind of, you know, handled for me. And all it's doing is just toggling a class. Now you could get fancier and there's other things that you can do. Like, you know, you can add your own settings here if you want to, like sometimes, you know, for a bespoke project, you might be doing that sort of stuff. That does move into React territory. I mean, it doesn't technically have to, but it basically does. But I don't think that that's a thing that you need to do. I don't think this is a situation where you need a custom block. I think it's a situation where a design is not too bad once you know the tool. You know, let's be honest, if I went and tried to do this in some page builder I didn't use, I would have no idea how to do it. It would take me much more than an hour for sure. And then the last thing I might do is create a pattern out of this and add it to my pattern library. And then I can put it in on any page and the styles are all there and everything is ready to go. But yeah, that was basically how I built the layout. Did I miss anything? Let me know. Was there any like major gaps? Like I said, I think it's mostly just about understanding the workflow and understanding the way in which things are made for the block editor, and also knowing that like at the end of the day, it's not a page builder. I don't think it's meant to replace page builders in the sense that, you know, it's gives you a nice visual editing experience. And it's nice that you can hand this to a client and you can have a lot of this stuff all turned off and you can do like things like locking the whole pattern to where the client comes and all they see is I can edit some content, but I can't break it, move it, change it, redesign it, anything. I can just come in, edit the content I need, change the link, whatever. And if it's it, you know, that's kind of the goal, is not to give you the page builder experience, but to give the end user a nice curated visual editor experience. And I think that hopefully people can draw that distinction in the way they talk about the block editor and not try to throw it out there like it's some sort of Elementor killer, which I don't think it is or should be. And I think, you know, that's just not what it's going to accomplish, at least not on its current trajectory. So cool. I hope this was a nice breakdown of how I would build a section, and there will be an accompanying article where I kind of dig deeper into this whole idea where I just don't think the block editor is a page builder. Let me know if you have any questions or if I missed anything super important or critical.